Good morning. We're going to read about dream jobs again today. This dream job is a herpetologist. What do you think that she studies? Look over here at the picture. A herpetologist studies snakes and amphibians. Ariana Kuhn looks for snakes on the island of Madagascar. She visits the country's rainforests, dry forests, and grasslands looking for any slithering or hissing reptiles she can find. With each snake she catches, she is one step closer to learning what life might be like for them in the future. Madagascar is an island country 250 miles off the coast of Africa. It is about the size of Texas, yet it is one of the most biodiverse places on the planet. Biodiversity is the variety of organisms in a particular region. Madagascar has more than 11,000 plant species, 700 reptile and amphibian species, and more than 100 mammal species. Nearly all organisms found on Madagascar are found nowhere else on Earth. Kuhn is a herpetologist. That is a science who studies reptiles and amphibians. She is trying to learn more about Madagascar's biodiversity. That's because many of Madagascar's ecosystems are under threat. On the island, people are cutting down forests and human population is growing. Also, the Earth's average temperature is rising. This means some species could go extinct, such as the 80 known species of snakes on Madagascar. Kuhn wants to learn as much as she can before it's too late, she says. Catching and studying wild snakes. Kuhn learns about Madagascar snakes by taking DNA samples. She gets the samples from the species she finds in the wild. This can be deep in a forest or on the edge of a road. Kuhn does some of her field work during the day and some at night. The researchers scan the forest looking for snakes feeding on frogs or lizards in the trees, or they search the forest floor looking under rocks and piles of leaves. Once they find one, they need to move fast. You have about 5 seconds to grab it before it slithers away, she says. When Kuhn has a snake, she takes a sample from the animal. It can be a tiny piece of its flesh, to the tip of its tail, to several scales. Then she records the location of where she caught the snake using a GPS tool. She puts the tissue in alcohol and drops it into tiny test tubes no larger than your pinky finger. Finally, she brings the samples back with her to the lab at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. There she is working toward her doctorate degree. Understanding snake DNA. At the museum, there are about 400,000 samples of reptile and amphibian species from countries all over the world. Kuhn and other scientists use the samples. They compare them with the more recent material they collect in the wild. Kuhn wants to understand why so many different snake species evolved on Madagascar. Scientists don't really know yet, so they are looking to historic climate data to provide some clues. They are also looking at the genes of each species. Genes are made up of tiny sections of DNA, which contains the instructions for how living organisms grow and work. Kuhn can look for mutations or changes in the snake's genes. These mutations can represent adaptations to change in the environment, or they might represent a response to competition for resources. Understanding how a species evolved is useful. It helps us understand what might happen in the future. Changes are coming to the island. As human activity continues to warm the earth, weather and climate patterns will shift too. In Madagascar, it is expected that cyclones will become more common and more severe. Rainfall patterns are also expected to change. Some areas will get less rain, while others will get much more. These changes will affect many species, with some adapting to the changes better than others. Like so many other scientists, Kuhn wants to protect Madagascar's biodiversity, and so she is trying to learn as much as she can. It's exactly what I want to do, she says. All right, now let's go to the questions and you answered the questions.